Hey team, so looking at trihybrid Punnett squares is relatively similar to looking at dihybrid Punnett squares, except we are looking at three traits, not just two. This is one of my favorite activities to do in class, and if we were here in class, I'd have you like drawing things and coloring things, but I decided to do this one online so that you didn't have to do that. So basically what we're doing is we're looking at a slightly more complicated Punnett square. We're looking at three traits. We're looking at coat color, we're looking at markings, and we're looking at a semi-fatal trait, which is dwarfism in cattle. If you look up a little bit about dwarfism in cattle, you will learn that mostly, depending on where the mutation comes from, there are a few different mutations for dwarfism in cattle, and depending on where that comes from, will determine whether or not it's going to be fatal. Dwarfism is fatal most of the time that it's expressed. We are using a single trait form of dwarfism today. An animal that is big F has no signs. If it's big F, it's a dwarfism carrier, and if it's little f, it has full dwarfism. So your first step for this trihybrid Punnett square is you are going to write out the genotype and phenotype of our parents. I have number one, both of our parents are both heterozygous for all three of these traits, so knowing what you know about genetics, figure it out. Both of our parents, what I'm also going to have you do is I'm going to have you put in what their phenotype is going to look like. And I have some phenotype options up here that I'm just going to have you copy and paste. So depending on what you get for the genotype and looking at the code up here will tell you what you're going to get for the phenotype. For the dwarfism trait, I'm going to have you put in a background color, red, yellow, or green, depending on depending on whether or not it's like not a carrier, or carrying the full dwarfism fatal trait. If you don't know how to put a background onto a slideshow, you go up here to the little paint can, click fill, and it'll fill color with the color that you want. You're also going to go back to last week's activity where I asked you to calculate or practice calculating different sperm and different eggs, so the genetic possibilities from this three trait combination, possible different sperm, possible different eggs, possible different offspring, and then you're also going to list all of the possible gamete options. So what that means is if I have a gamete that only has one copy of each trait, what are all of my options? So for example, your first option, looking at our three traits up here, your first option would be big B, if I'm looking at markings, big W, and then dwarfism, big F. Once you have all of your gamete options figured out, you're going to go to part 2, which is the Punnett square. So down on the bottom of this sheet, there's a little tab that says the Punnett square. What you're going to do is you're going to enter your gamete options across the top. As you can see from our Punnett square, you should have 8 different gamete options. And then down the side is also going to be your gamete options too. You're going to write the animal's genotype up here. So if my first gamete option is BWF, big B, or big B, big W, big F, then my female gamete option is also going to be big WF up here, because both of my male and female are heterozygous. So I'm going to write in the animal's genotype. So big B, big W, and then big F. So looking at my code up here, my animal is going to be black, and it's going to have a white face. So that means I'm going to select this one, copy, paste. And then since my animal is big F, it doesn't have any signs of dwarfism, so I'm going to fill that with a green. And you're going to go through the rest of this Punnett square. There are a few conclusion questions at the end for you to figure out how many of each animal, like how many of each genotype and phenotype you see. Relatively straightforward. If you have any questions about this activity, let me know.